Welcome to the channel, guys. My name's Chase Maddox. I'm a jazz guitarist and educator based in Miami, Florida. Today I have something really special I want to share with you. I've done these jazz guitar collabs in the past. We've done a few of them where I had some of my favorite guitarists play over the same standard, play over a blues, play over ballads, and they've all been amazing. But this time I wanted to challenge some of my favorite guitarists. These are guys I'm lucky enough to call previous teachers, mentors, and friends. I wanted to give them a challenge that would really stretch their ability. And so I asked them if they could play at 300 beats per minute over rhythm changes. This is one of the most difficult things you can do as a jazz guitarist, and I wanted to see who was up for the challenge. Now, a big shout out to Cole Davis, New York City bassist, for providing an awesome live backing track with real bass line that he's coming up with so that they didn't have to play over some sort of computerized backing track. They get to play along with the live thing. Some of the guys decided to use that, some of them didn't. Stick around because as these guys are playing, then they'll also be sharing their best tip to play over a fast rhythm changes. Make sure you check out the links in the description for how you can support all of these amazing guitarists that participated. And let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway is from this video. Let's get into it. I couldn't have done this kind of challenge without Barry Greene, my previous teacher. A lot of things that I really notice in what Barry's doing, if you notice how calm and relaxed both of his hands are in playing, he doesn't have any of this kind of extraneous movement, and he just is calm, cool, and collected while he's ripping through these eighth note lines. It's really inspiring to see. And obviously Barry's one of the masters at doing this. Thanks, Barry, for participating.
Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that performance of rhythm changes at 300 beats per minute. So certainly fast. Anyway, Chase asked me to just say a quick thing or two about playing tunes at these kind of tempos. Right off the bat, I will just quite honestly say that most of it is muscle memory. To play at those kind of tempos and to be purely improvising, at least for me, I find it essentially impossible. And what the improvising part of playing tempos like that, for myself at least, is how to put together all of that, learned material. When I say learned material, I mean a lot of the lines that you're hearing in that performance are things that I've sat and shed for hours upon hours upon hours. And as I said, quite frankly, just the limitations of us as human beings, I don't know anyone who could, at that tempo, be purely just playing through the stream of consciousness of just line playing without having a tremendous amount of muscle memory. And this is, by the way, documented on recordings after recordings after recordings. In other words, if you look at a Charlie Parker transcription of him playing rhythm changes, you see the same exact language that he would use on countless recordings. It's just, again, I think the way it's orchestrated is where the improvising part of this comes in. Just to say that at these kind of breakneck tempos, it requires you to have had shed a lot of jazz language in order to play it in the style that I am, which is coming from the bebop, hard bop kind of era. I know I'm off on a tangent. I mean, I suppose you can treat this in a modal way and just kind of play over different tonalities, which would of course create a different approach. But for me, when somebody says, hey, let's play some rhythm changes, I personally take it as a challenge to be able to play the changes, so that if you were to hear me without accompaniment, that you would know that I was, playing over the changes to rhythm changes. So that's it. In a quick recap, it requires a tremendous amount of shed time just to get language together that you could just flat out play at those kind of tempos, And then, again, having enough control over it where you can construct meaningful solos when needed to at that kind of a tempo. Anyway, I hope that helps, and always good to work with Chase and all the other great guitar players that he has on these particular projects. So I'll see you guys again soon, and thanks.
Next up, it looks like we have Rodney Jones. Great Rodney Jones, everyone. So Rodney's awesome. What I really love in this particular example of his playing is he gives us some variety with the rhythms. He gives us some space to breathe, especially important when we have something going at 300 beats per minute, that we have an ability to digest the lines that he's giving us. So that's really cool, especially the part where he then breaks into some chord soloing stuff. Thanks, Rodney, for participating and sharing your musicality with us all.
Well, that was my rhythm change. And as you can hear, it's pretty fast. 300 is very quick. And I wanted to play that not warmed up. I wanted to play that just like a first touch so you can see what it's like. Now, normally if I warm up and spend some time, I can play that and be much cleaner. But I wanted you to experience what it's like just to pick up your guitar and go. What practice allows to happen. You notice I play a lot of my own vocabulary, sort of the devices and things that I use. And that's a great tip. And that's the lesson I would suggest. It's a lesson I learned from George Benson. Everything George Benson plays, he plays optimally for him. He he's figured out the picking, the fingering, the articulation, how he wants to play it. And so once he figures that out for a particular line or device, you can check that off and he goes on to the next one. So many of us as guitarists start working on music and we get to work on the guitar. So the lesson is the things you want to play over rhythm changes or any tune, really work the fingerings out, really work the mechanics out so that when you play them, you can play it consistently and over again so that you're not always guessing in real time when you get there, like, what do I do? What do I do? You want to have solved those in advance. Anyway, that's my rhythm change. It's rough and tumble, but that's it. Hope you enjoy it. Any questions, you know what to do. Talk to you later. Bye.
And now we have Hristo Vitchev. Awesome. Hristo Vitchev, everybody. So this was really cool to see. I especially like that Hristo's, modifying his tone, giving it almost more of a jazz fusion type of feel. I think it works really, really well at this kind of tempo over rhythm changes. And one other thing I want to point out is on the bridge section, I really like how Hristo had a sequence, a melodic sequence that he was modifying as we move through kind of the standard rhythm changes bridge chords, which both gives him a second to breathe over this tempo and also sets us up for something we can, as a listener, attach to melodically. So awesome performance. Thanks, Hristo, for doing this. Really love what you did there.
Hello everyone, guitarist Hristo Vitchev here, and I just wanted to say it's such an honor and joy to be asked once again to participate in these amazing collaboration videos that Chase and Jazz Memes are putting together. So it was a humbling experience. I do not frequent the 300 BPM areas too often in my playing, but it was definitely a challenge personally, and hopefully some of the things that I have to share would help some of you expand your practicing ideas and improvisational palette as well. Some of the basic things that I like to work and prepare in advance, especially if I was to play over fast changes, is to basically work on inversions. I will take whatever progression I'm going to be improvising over and do an in-depth study on the fretboard with the closest possible voice leading. So, for example, if I take the bulk of the rhythm changes, the 1-6-2-5 progression, then in that key of B flat, I would pick a position on the fretboard, let's say 5th or 3rd to the 7th fret, something like that. And then I will try to arpeggiate all the chords in inversions that position those harmonies on top of each other without my hand moving. So, for example, I can play the B flat starting on A from the 7th degree of the chord. Then I can start G7 starting on B maybe. From the 3rd, C minor can start on B flat as a 7. And F7 can start on A as the 3rd. So once I have them in that particular inversion, then I can do more intricate connections and closer voice leading that would allow me to play in and out of the chords without having to reposition my hand, and also start on the root of whatever chord comes next. So, for example, once I establish those arpeggios, I will do very simple exercises playing 4 notes in each. 4 notes in B flat, 4 notes in G7, 4 notes in C, 4 notes in F, and again 4 notes in B flat, 4 notes in G7, C minor, F. At that very basic level. Again, this is just outlining, almost like learning how to sketch with a pencil. Once I'm comfortable with that, then I usually like to throw the color, add extensions, alterations, whatever it's appropriate for the context I'm applying those melodic ideas. So in this case, over the G7, adding some alterations, it's something that at least I think it's appropriate because it's leading to a minor tonic, the C minor, so 5 of 2. And so a lot of different ways to get attention. I can, instead of a G7, I can arpeggiate an A flat melodic minor arpeggio. I can do, let's say, an F half diminished arpeggio. So maybe I'll start with G7 and figure out in that position where is my F half diminished. And I can combine them, or I can start it also from the B. So I'll do basic exercises like that in advance. So that, I will do B flat. Here's the G7 outer, C minor, and then maybe an F7 outer can be represented with an E flat half diminished. And so that starting from A, this is the flat 5 of E flat. So that's your F outered sound. So at that level, then you have your basic arpeggios, you have a secondary arpeggio that will give you all the colorations of the chords that you want to apply that to, and then everything is in one physical position. So I can do very, small changes, physical movements between each chord. So those fast tempos, at least to me personally, that makes a whole lot of a difference, because that can allow you to take a very fast turn without physically having to jump and waste time and efficiency in doing so. So at the basic level, my preparation happens to be simply with arpeggios and inversions, just to kind of get the form and harmonic progression that I'm going to be playing over completely inside my mind also, but within my fingers as well. And then I usually start and progress that with modes. I will play the full modes for each tonality. So for the B flat, instead of just a major arpeggio, I will expand that to scales, right? So then I'll go. Then the G7, I'm going to play an A flat melodic. And so forth, and all the scales, obviously all the modes are the inversions of the scale, right? And so for each tonality, I would pick a mode that only fits in that physical space on the fretboard, so that I can proceed to the last stage, which is melodic development of different motifs. So if I extract a motif, for example, a 5-note grouping in the key of B flat, I can take that motif and now place it in every single one of those modes that are in the same physical space. So I can have a motif in B flat, one in A flat melodic minor. That's going to go over the G7. Then I can have a motif over the C minor and a motif over the F7. Maybe from F sharp melodic minor. So then I will try that. My last stage is to take whatever melodic motif I'm working on, and in that same physical space, try to see how many different places I can go from one chord to the other, obviously in the smallest rate, time rate. So that usually, when I spend hours on this, helps me have a clearer vision and also a muscle memory when the tempo really gets cooking, as to where I can take those very fast turns and really capture each particular harmony. And once you get those skeletons established, it's very easy to see embellishments, chromatic embellishments, all kinds of enclosures and things that definitely are the spices to me in the melodic world that can be applied very easily once the architecture and highways that you're going to be moving are paved pretty well.
And now we have Cecil Alexander. what an effortless performance by Cecil Alexander here. I really love how he added in these low double stops as accents and kind of framing the rest of the melodic lines that he's playing. It's really interesting how he's able to give it such a freedom of space in the way he's playing, where it really doesn't feel like it's playing at 300 beats per minute. It feels so relaxed that you almost forget that he's like burning through these lines. He has awesome little quotes in there, and you kind of get a sense of his personality just from that, where he plays with some of the ideas that he's going on. Like you can see he ends up in some melodic ideas he maybe wasn't expecting, and then kind of plays with them a little bit, and then goes on to something else. So really, really interesting performance. Thanks again, Cecil, for doing this. Always love having you on the channel.
So a couple of things that I like to keep in mind when I'm soloing over rhythm changes. One would be simplifying the harmony, especially in the A section. For example, the 1-6-2-5 or 3-6-2-5 in the A section can be simplified to just be 1-5, or sometimes I'll even play 6 dominant 2-5 if I want to get that sort of voice leading that the third of the G7 has going into the root of the 2 minor 7 chords, C minor 7. But a lot of times I'm just thinking 1-5 instead of that turnaround progression. And the cool thing about that is it can kind of act as like a springboard for more complex harmonic substitutions. So one thing you'll hear a lot of soloists do, and one thing I like to do quite a bit, is play a third away from the original chord change, or in thirds away from the original chord change. So if I'm playing over B flat major 7, I might think of playing off of major third substitutions or minor third substitutions. For example, off of B flat major, you could play D flat major, E flat major, E major and G major. So those would be minor thirds away from the original chord change, or major thirds away from the original chord change would be B flat, D major, and G flat major. And you could do the same with the 5 chords. So again, if you're just thinking 1-5, 5 chord substitutions, go up in minor thirds or go up in major thirds. And you can really end up with a lot of really interesting substitutions. So for example, you could be playing D major going to D flat major. So that's a major third above the original chord change. D major is a major third above B flat major, and D flat 7 is a major third below F7. So especially at fast tempos, you can really get away with a lot. On the A sections, kind of thinking of like skating over the chord changes rather than playing an idea that, suggests each harmony. And in the B section, there's a ton of stuff that you can do with substitute progressions. One thing you'll hear a lot of people do is, rather than playing the dominant chords as is, D7, G7, C7, F7, you play descending dominant 7th chord. So D7, D flat 7, C7, and B7 going back into the 1 chord, B flat major 7. Or you can play around with the same sort of third substitutions that I mentioned as options for the A section. So just some stuff to think about.
And next up, we have Will Brahm. Awesome job, Will. That was so cool to see. So a couple things I want to point out here that I noticed in what Will was doing. I really like how he kind of started off with some simpler melodic ideas, very blues based, and then gave some rhythmic ideas. The rhythmic variety here was really an emphasis in Will's playing, and it made it interesting to hear what he's going to do next, and also more exciting when he would go into those faster lines all the way up high. His playing is super clean, super interesting. I like some of the variety he was giving us with some of those quarter note triplets and a whole bunch of stuff in there that hopefully he dives into on the educational side of it. Thanks again, Will, for participating.
Hey everyone, Will Brahm here. Really happy to be a part of Jazz Memes' Rhythm Changes segment here. Want to give a shout out to the bassist Cole Davis for laying down such a stellar track for me to play over. Now, something I like to work on over rhythm changes is extending my lines past the point that a line might usually go, or that past the point that I might usually end a phrase. Because as guitar players, there's a box thing to what we do where we're playing a shape and then the chord changes or the section changes, or we're on the top string and we're out of notes and then we switch to a new shape. And what I'm trying to do is find those forks in the road, those forks on the fretboard, where I can basically hand throw into a next position and continue the line. And man, at this tempo, it is not easy. And I got lots of homework to do on it. But hopefully in the 4 choruses that you'll hear, you can hear some of those extended lines that I was trying to do, where it's like, all right, I could end it here, but I'm going to keep trying to go just to give it a more 3-dimensional feel. This was really fun to be a part of, and I want to thank Jazz Memes for having me. Take care.
Next up, we have Larry Koonse. Wow, Larry had such an interesting solo in this example. I really, really liked the way he started. So starting off with these double stops and then kind of building it where then it became 3 and 4 note type chords. So you really like felt the orchestration of it kind of expanding. And so he did that for a while. And then switching into the single note lines. So that's interesting because a lot of times, traditionally, guys like Wes, we see them do single note lines leading into chord soloing. And so kind of flipping that narrative, starting with some more of the chord soloing thing, was very interesting. Going into the single note lines, Larry's killing it with all these awesome eighth note lines, and then coming back. So we kind of return to some of those ideas that he had at the beginning with these various double stops and counterpoint type of lines that were really, really interesting. Some of the like kind of pedal stuff he was doing, just super cool, and stuff I haven't really seen before. Really hope that he goes into some of that as well in the educational part. We'll find out. Thanks, Larry, for doing this. It's the first time I've had Larry on the channel. Really want to thank him and let him know that his work's appreciated.
I'd like to start by thanking Chase for asking me to participate in this examination of what is essentially an iconic American song form. Written by Gershwin, I believe in the 30s. This song form has been played by jazz musicians ever since it was written, and they love to play this form because it's so malleable. There's so much flexibility that's built into it. It's an AABA form. You can play blues over it. You can play diatonically over it. You can play out over it. One of my favorite versions of this is by Pat Metheny on his record Rejoicing. He plays mostly out on it, plays blues on it as well, and I just love that version. Anyway, for my version of this tune, I decided to come up with my own melody that had some flexibility built into it. So I came up with this really simple third motion. And then it's followed by a pedal point with some melodies that are built in beneath it. So it's so simple that I have the ability to sort of, in the moment, come up with my own rhythmic interpretation of it. And then on the bridge, to balance that diatonicism, I used some double diminished chords that are kind of dissonant and kind of bluesy. And that also gives me the kind of flexibility to sort of play rhythmically however I want, right? And it balances that simplicity of that diatonic melody. Now for the solo, I chose to think about orchestration right off the bat. So I'm ending with this pedal point at the end of the last A section that takes me into my solo. So I decided to play around with that motion. You have all these choices here. You can skip some of those notes. You can create your own rhythms. And then on the bridge, I play something harmonically. I'm sort of exploring, sort of laying down some landscape here for what's going to come in the next chorus. And the next chorus, I introduce some really basic melodies in the first couple of A sections. Maybe I don't get to anything burning until like the end of the second A section, where I'm playing some more eighth notes. So Cole Davis is playing this wonderful bass track. And it has this great sense of liveliness and forward motion, but it's basically 4 to the bar. So I wanted to experiment with a lot of rhythmic variety so that it wasn't the same sort of 2-to-1 counterpoint all the time that you would get when you play eighth notes. So in those first 2 A sections, I'm playing something basic with some space, and then eventually I get to some eighth notes, all right? And that's kind of the meat of the solo, right? The third chorus, I choose to sort of play a blues sort of shout chorus. I think I do something like this. That's the bluesy aspect of rhythm changes. So that third chorus, because you're adding more notes, feels like it's going somewhere. There's a story that's being told. There's a trajectory there. The fourth chorus, I chose to sort of feature Cole. You know, I chose a really simple sort of chord motion that sets up his quarter notes that follow in the 2 and 4 bar phrases in which I leave space. And again, there's flexibility built into that because there's simplicity in the choices. So I can make rhythmic choices based on the moment, right? So it feels fresh. And then I basically let Cole do his thing. And that's enough. Sometimes just featuring the bass, especially when you have 2 instruments, orchestration, it plays a big factor in the process. So the elimination of one instrument it creates a lot of interest for the listener. Okay, my chorus out. Basically, I'm going back to the melody. There's some little rhythmic permutations that are a little different than that first chorus. Just those are felt in the moment, you know. Sometimes I do something on the bridge, coming out of that bridge that sets up a different rhythmic motion into the A section. And then I follow that with my last chord, which is bluesy. You know, I think I used this chord, you know, pitting the major third against that minor third, which really exposes that blues pitch, makes it feel dissonant. And then I play, you know, one of those kitchen sink chords at the very end with a D flat triad and an E minor triad on top. I think that's a Stravinsky chord that I discovered. So, hope you enjoy this video, and I'm looking forward to hearing the versions of rhythm changes by all these other great masters on the guitar. Thanks again, Chase.
And now we have Sheryl Bailey. Sheryl Bailey also gave an awesome performance here, demonstrating not only her ability to shred lines through rhythm changes, but also the blues element in the playing. I loved some of the rhythmic choices that she was making, some of the quotes throughout, and just the balance between, you know, giving some space, playing some great lines, and adding in that blues element, which I think makes a lot of sense over a rhythm changes, especially on these A sections. So thanks, Sheryl, for participating, and hope you guys enjoyed that one as much as I did.
Hey there. Thanks for this challenge. It was a challenge. 300 is a bit of a bear. It's a fast tempo. The secret is relaxation, right? So I've worked with the Strat a bit, just to feel relaxed, breathe. That is the secret to great technique. This unifying principle of great technique is relaxation. Rhythm changes is such an important part of playing this music, right? It's probably the most common progression. It is, 3-6-2-5, 1-6-2-5, 2-5-4, flat 7-7. It is in thousands of tunes. So I always say to folks, really getting inside and playing rhythm changes is gonna translate to so many things. The B section is dominant 7 cycles, which are everywhere. So in studying this, if you're studying, it's very important. Again, the challenge is, in this case, the tempo is so fast, but even at a slower tempo, you have 2 beats for each chord, and you have to play the changes. There's an expectation. Right? That you can hear that progression. Also, I did a little nod to Thelonious Monk. Now, I learned it from, if you're serious about rhythm changes, Don Byas and Slam Stewart is one of the most quintessential versions, you should know. But there's a little reharm where B-flat rhythm changes, you start on an F-sharp 7, and you make a cycle till you get to the 2-5-4. Right? So everybody from Monk and swing guys and bebop guys to people like Michael Brecker have played that type of thing. So I wanted to give a nod to that. Sometimes you can just think of the whole A section as maybe an altered dominant and play some blues. So those are our sort of techniques on that A section. The B section to me is the most fun because it's a dominant 7 cycle. Also, you get 2 measures for each chord, so we can stretch out a little bit. And so, the fun is always on a dominant 7 cycle, because we can color those dominant 7s in so many different ways. They could be altered, they could be diminished, they could be whole tone, they could be a natural dominant. And so I like to have fun with flowing back and forth between those sounds. And the thing is about a tempo like this, you don't have to play every subdivision, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Like, it's already set in motion. So I think the thing is to really learn how to feel those subdivisions and be relaxed with it. And then play the phrases that you want. To me, it's when you can get to that place with a tempo where you're relaxed and it's almost like standing in the middle of a wave. You know what I mean? And you play what you want. You don't feel obliged to play, because I understand that all the subdivisions are taken care of. I don't need to play all of them. So think about that when you're working on some of these things. Hopefully another time, another place, we can have deeper discussions about the harmony and all those things. But think about that in terms of developing a relaxed technique for all tempos, and for sure on an up tempo. So I hope you find that helpful, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out. Thank you all.
Next up, we have Dan Wilson. Man, if that doesn't make you want to play guitar, I don't know what will. So Dan Wilson, everybody. So Dan's no stranger or slouch, obviously, on fast rhythm changes. A ton of things that he is really doing here and that I personally love. One is obviously his command over the fretboard and this tempo. You could tell he was, really just playing easily over this. Maybe at spots he feels like he wasn't, but as an outside observer, we definitely feel that. Again, he has such an awesome mix of playing through some, kind of standard blues licks that sound great over rhythm changes, especially some of these bluesy double stops that we all love. And then at the same time, just going right into this bebop language and playing all through those changes. Especially on the part where he took a little break and started hitting us with these like chord hits. And it felt like rhythmically, the way he was placing those kept coming at us in a way that was super exciting, and then coming back in to just continue on ripping through the eighth note lines. Awesome performance. Hope you guys dug that as much as I did.
Fast rhythm changes are kind of a sort of a test. It's sort of like a mental game. So in order to kind of give myself a break and just not having to think chord, because it's easy to fall into that because the chords are moving so fast. You want to think about all of the melodies that are available over this particular chord progression. You want to obviously think of I've got rhythm, and how that's constructed. They're not necessarily spelling out each chord change, even though the melody works really well over the changes, which is why it was written. So you want to think about all the melodies involved from I Got Rhythm even to all the Charlie Parker melodies. That's basically a solo, but it's singable. So I don't necessarily think chord all the time. I want to be able to, but I really want to think about. Sometimes I just think about, for the A sections, I just think about just the one chord. Just the one chord, or 1 to 5, or just basically the 5 chord. Sometimes I'll just play, for example, like an F whole tone over the entire A section. Because it kind of gives it sort of a feeling of suspense, and then when you resolve to the bridge, and then you can start spelling things out. So I mix it up like that, not only to give my mind a break from having to think so quickly, but to sort of zoom out and think more musically in terms of direction of a solo. So I think of, I just try to simplify things. It's sort of like zooming out, like, when you're thinking chord, it's sort of like you're looking through a microscope, but instead you want to kind of look through some binoculars. You want to back up and kind of look through the binoculars at the bigger picture. Especially at a fast tempo. Sometimes when you think just chord to chord, it can kind of seem like it's like a vocabulary or like a spelling lesson, or like you don't want to just for the whole time, it just kind of becomes a little bit like, hey, look what I can do, instead of making a memorable melody. So that's, hopefully that came across when I was playing. We'll see.
Once again, I encourage you guys to check out the links in the descriptions for ways that you can check out more from all of these amazing jazz guitarists. If you want to learn more from any of these guys specifically, I host Jazz Master sessions once a month within Chase's Guitar Academy. with a bunch of these guys. We've had many of them already on the channel. They're recorded and presented to you. It's a really great way to hang and learn from the world's best jazz guitar. So link in the description as well for that if you're interested. Thanks to you guys for watching. Let me know in the comments what your biggest takeaway is and who else you would want to see participating in one of these jazz challenges. Thanks again for watching, guys. Really appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video.